What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Dunk Up the Ship podcast. It's episode 75, Rev 5 of Ask the Chief with Chief Bob. It's just us catching up. We kind of went all over the place. There is, just so everybody's aware, there's a weird section about an hour. There's a weird transition about an hour and 20 minutes in where I just had to cut some stuff out, and there wasn't really a great spot to switch over. And it was just, we got into talking about some stuff. It had a lot of names and just information that it wasn't practical to edit around, so I just cut it out. So if you kind of catch that weird transition, I apologize. But just me and Chief Bob catching up, kind of went all over the place, variety of topics, and yeah, just fly on the wall type stuff. So I hope you guys enjoy this.
I do. Slowly. I have some signatures.
Gotta do it, Bob.
There's just like nonstop stuff that's going on. Like,
yeah,
I don't even know how to explain it. Like, a lot of it's just like local. It's specific to our command and some of the people that are there that we're having issues with. But
right,
there's just like always something. And then we just had a TAV like 6 or 7 months ago.
What's that?
Like the training assist visit, but it's SLC coming down and doing an inspection.
Gotcha.
And they did one, like 6 or 7 months ago. It's supposed to be once every year, 2 years they do one, something like that. But it's like they do it not just on us. It's like it depends on the site. It's super random. Sometimes we'll go like 2 or 3 years without one, and then apparently somehow we just got short cycled. I don't know. It's not like we're going to the yard, so they got to squeeze in an oars before we go to dry dock. So I don't get how that makes sense to anybody that we're doing another one. But that, since I'm the rate lead, that means that like we have to do a test. We have to do a boatload of binder reviews because every course I have to review, every instructor binder, and fix all that nonsense. It's just like it was just like a last minute crunch. Like, they made us schedule when we were going to give our test before we even had the test. And then I got mine for some reason, like a day or 2 days later than everybody else. So I got it Wednesday morning for the test to be on Thursday afternoon.
Of course.
And then they want me to like review each question and tell them if the answer key makes sense. And I'm trying to explain like EW is such a weird thing right now that I couldn't even explain like why it was wrong. It was like the question it's like the answer key is fine, but the problem is the question that they gave us is on outdated shit.
Yeah.
But it's also stuff that like everybody understands. So I'm looking at it like, yo, that's a free 5 points. I'm not even going to fight it.
Yeah. That's funny.
But I did that yesterday afternoon, grade the test, and out of the 15 so far that took it, we've had 6 people, I think, fail the instructor questions.
Oops.
Like almost completely.
Jesus.
I had 1 straight 0. I had 1 point.
Wow.
It's weird. Like the in-rate one is hard too, because the first question is an IT question.
Yeah.
And the comms and the EW people have the exact same question.
That's stupid.
And then the other questions after that are either EW or comms related, right? Yeah. And so like the OG ITs are in there and they like do pretty well in that first 2-part question.
Right.
And then they just tank after that.
Yeah.
And then the previous radio men are the opposite.
Yeah.
Tank the first one. And so it's like,
that's so stupid.
Can't wait to write up this test item analysis and explain why everybody sucks.
Yeah. Explain how ridiculous it is to be testing these guys. Cause like what doesn't make any sense is you're testing them like they got some kind of training on all this shit, like before, like they combined everybody, right? But then they didn't. It's not like they sent everybody to all these schools immediately and magically they had like the ITs had radio knowledge and the radiomen had IT knowledge and whatever. And so it's just like, they're the same guys. You just changed their name. So it's like,
no, they just blame it on on our in-rate training that we have twice a month and tell us that it's not adequate, as if an hour every 2 hours a month is really going to teach somebody how to do a totally new job.
Obviously I'm inadequate. That's what happened. It's not your idiotic plan to just merge all these rates and like decide that they're all going to do different jobs now and that somehow they're supposed to magically have all that in-rate knowledge. It's totally my fault. You're right.
Yeah. Whatever.
God.
It is what it is. Yeah. We were talking to our department head about it, and the other guy was like, the other rate lead, the comms one, he was like, why are we taking this test? Like, what is the purpose of, what do we gain from this? What does this tell anything? Like, if like basically said, like, what happens if somebody fails?
Yeah.
And he was like, oh, it's, if they fail, it is what it is. Like, it's no big deal. We'll work on it with training and we'll keep moving along. And it's like, then why are we taking this?
Yeah. Yeah. Then what's the point? It's so that the people at SLC can validate the job that they have. That's all it is. Some book or some message or some whatever said that they have to go do this, this inspection on your schoolhouse. And nobody had the conversation about whether or not it makes any sense to do it right now on a rate that just merged and a bunch of people that don't have training in all these different areas. Cause like the same thing's happening with I just did an inspection on a submarine with 57% manning and they just lost their chief the day before we went down. And so like well, yeah. And it sounds as ridiculous as it is. And they were all for like, the chief wasn't lost until we were already like about to go down, but so they didn't know that. But even going in, when we found out their manning, we're like, what are we going for? Like, why? This doesn't make any sense. But they were going to force us to do the inspection anyway. And then they lost the chief like last minute. And so there's a first class and 3 juniors on a submarine that's supposed to have 7 or 8 total, depending on what document you're looking at. And so I looked at my boss and was just like, I'm not doing it. Like, I was like, look, like we can have a conversation with people and we can try to officially say this isn't an inspection. And because we're already physically here, we can just go down and do training and like assist as much as we can to get them, I don't know, to get them as ready as they can be to endure the suck. But really, they just need sets of hands. But initially they were going to just have us do the inspection anyway. And I was like, look, I'm not doing an inspection. I was like, you can send me down there and tell me I'm going to do an inspection. And I'm going to just give them the lowest at standards grade, which is like an average that I possibly can. And then just do training and write comments. Like, I was like, so even if like a fully manned division in the same state would have gotten an unsat, like there's nothing productive about me going down there and telling a group of people that just lost their chief, had a bunch of other unplanned losses, and are only manned at around 50%, that they suck. Like, you should be doing a better job at all this stuff that you couldn't possibly do effectively because you don't have enough sets of hands. And even the supervisory element that's responsible for all like the admin and accountability side, it's like he just vanished, and now this first class is all of a sudden thrust into this role. Not even 24 hours before I got there. And I'm going to go down and write up a report that says he's doing a bad job. Like, I'm like, so no, I'm not doing it. I was like, we can either officially say that or unofficially, I'm telling you, like, I'm not going to do it because it's not productive at all. And then I've been going down this road. I've been like launching into these tirades recently about like, cause we keep having all these issues on boats with like, they're just, everybody's not great at their job. Like there's boats that like, there are some out there that they're doing a really good job, like, but they're really rare. And we're having this conversation about like why that is, because like going into this inspection, we kept being told that they were doing terrible. It's going to be painful. And all, like, I'm like, oh great, here we go again. And I've been talking to some of the guys that do a similar job as me about that. A lot of them are about to retire. And just like the state of like our rate. And it's just like, like a lot of guys don't understand what's really happening, in my opinion, because to me, it's really incredibly simple. It's like, we don't get trained ever. And so it's like, oh, well, there's a CSA school. You used to run it, right? Yeah, I used to run a 25 training day school where it's like you don't even get that much time. And it's like it's impossible to teach them how to do this job effectively in 25 training days or less. So you end up with like, not only do the new cooks that you're getting on submarines not know how to do their job, but the people that are responsible for teaching them how to do their job also don't really know how to do their job. They know how to do the administrative side of it, which is why this ridiculous checklist I have to go down on a submarine with is so administratively heavy when we do a job called being a culinary specialist. It makes you scratch your head, like, why would I not be spending more time on evaluating the quality and like method and you're spending more time on the culinary side of it and like sanitation and stuff like that. Not that that's not on there, but it's way less important than all this admin that adds zero value to the mission, basically.
Right.
And so like we have all these cooks that don't know how to cook in charge of a bunch of cooks that don't know how to cook. And then we're like throwing our hands up going, why can't they cook? Like, and it's like guys like me who have I had a bunch of industry experience before I joined the Navy, and then I got a culinary degree. So like I'm classically trained, blah, blah, blah. Like there's not a lot of me in like, I don't know another guy like me in like the higher levels of the submarine community, like the senior enlisted guys. That like just has a similar training background and stuff. Like most of the people in the submarine force that have come in with a culinary degree or get one at some point end up in the enlisted community, or they get out of the Navy because they realize they can't do what they want to do in the normal Navy. And so like you don't really have anyone with the skill set required to provide that training, whether it's at an A school that's too short or whether it's in the fleet. And so like you just end up with these really bad products. You end up with sailors making food that is like that article that the gossip rag that the Navy has. It's not really the Navy's, but like that they put out this ridiculous article that I got all mad about, bashing all this food on like carriers and stuff, which is like, I got it. Like those instances that they showed was really, really bad.
Right.
But there's also a lot of people doing a really good job. And then also it's like the actual problem is that they're never provided any actual training. And it's like, I'm sure there's other rates that have a similar issue, but a lot of the other rates, like they at least have a training pipeline that makes some kind of sense. And no one ever looks at it and is like, well, why can't you cook? Because they think they can cook, which is largely untrue. And they're like, well, I can pour milk into cereal, so I'm basically an expert. I put food in my mouth and chew, so I totally know what I'm talking about here. And so you end up with these like people that are flaming all these cooks like they're morons for not knowing how to do this. And then then you get into this really weird place where it's like the whole rating is constructed in a way that caters to people that have no idea how to actually cook. So they built this whole like construct around doing other things. You know what I mean? Like it's really bizarre where it's like the way that everything is set up is like, they built everything to be very administrative focused and to like create things to do. Sorry, I'm trying to make this stupid thing stop dinging because my phone is linked to my computer and all these texts keep coming in. I don't know. I got to go to like notifications, I think. Fuck it, sound, baby. Play sound. Never. Can we just mute it? Oh, man, hopefully it doesn't fuck anything else up. I think it's I don't know, whatever. It's probably not going to work. And so like I've been having these conversations lately about like how the whole thing is built on a shoddy foundation, basically. And like the Navy Standard Core menu is a joke. It's like they built this menu that is built around this Go for Green program that doesn't make any sense. It's supposed to make you eat healthy, but it's like the nutritional science it's built on is like a joke.
Shaky at best.
Yeah, the whole thing is just bad. And then the standard core menu was built in a way that they were trying to create a catalog that no matter where you go in the world, there's what's called a prime vendor that will have all of the line items you need to execute this garbage menu. So that basically like you can resupply with whatever you need wherever you are. And so you're never going to be without what you need. It's like weirdly, let me explain to you how cooking works. If you just give me a bunch of food and I actually have the skill set to prepare food in a bunch of different ways, it doesn't matter what food you give me. I can write a menu and then prepare food that will keep the ship at sea and provide wholesome meals for the crew, which is the mission. But instead of just providing me a skill set, which would have been like cheaper and more practical, and if you're even wargaming at like a flag level, just makes so much more sense because like you could pull me in anywhere, like even a non like US port with no prime vendor, and I could get food from wherever there's food. And as long as the medical representatives inspect it and say it's fit for human consumption, it doesn't matter what it is. I'm going to have the skill set to prepare food for the crew, and we can continue fighting the ship. So if you're looking at it from like a big picture, like logistical support of warfighting forces on a global scale, it makes infinitely more sense to just actually spend the time at the beginning teaching cooks how to cook, because then I don't have to do any of this other garbage. I can just give me food from wherever, because they came up with this model where they were going to force us big blocks of food. They called them like battle packs and all this crap. But they're limiting themselves in this way where that's like they have to have the items that are on this master load list for this Navy standard core menu. And it's like, if you're in an area where they don't have those things, or they only have 77% of it, I'm going to have a whole bunch of holes in my load plan, and you didn't force me any food for that. And so now I have all these problems, and no one, like they don't have the skill set to figure those things out. And granted, like, okay, so they'll do something and people are going to eat, but it's like, it makes so like zero sense. And if you're actually thinking about it in any kind of logical way, and I think my brain's just kind of broken because I actually know how to cook. So it frustrates the crap out of me, because like, if you just taught them how to do their job, then you could structure the thing in a way that makes any kind of sense. But it's like, there's just no appetite to do that. And so you end up with these divisions that like, so the crew, so that was all a really long-winded way of arriving at the story I was going to tell you about. Like the senior enlisted, like a senior enlisted recently, like when I was on a boat, decided that somehow it was appropriate and like his role to write like a FSO comment card, which every operational galley in the Navy has a suggestion box. Decided It was his place to write a comment card destroying the soul of this division that was undermanned, about like some stupid like problem that he had with the food, right? Like there was a meal that was served. I ate the meal. It was not bad. Like these cooks, considering their manning situation, were doing a good job. Like the food quality was not bad. Like it could have been better, but it wasn't bad. Go ahead.
Before that's like the comment card I picture, like that's meant for like the angry nuke who doesn't have time to do anything about it, right? You just drop a comment card and roll off.
Yeah.
But like that person leaving a comment card is like, you kind of like, I know it's not like they're not the ones who cooked it. They're not directly running that division, but like, it's kind of yelling at yourself at that point in a weird way.
Kinda, yeah. It's like also just so like unprofessional, immature. Like you considering the role of that person, it's like number one, if you actually have that kind of a problem, like because the flavor of the complaint wasn't even legitimate. It was just preferential. Like it was just like he wasn't happy because the meal wasn't prepared the way he wanted it to be. Not because it was wrong or bad for the whole crew or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't like they served a bunch of raw chicken. They didn't serve a bunch of like a burnt
I can't
food.
believe you put sugar in your grits and not salt.
It was something that he was just decided that the preference he had wasn't like that was right and you did it wrong, even though it was just a preference thing. Because I ate the meal and the meal was good. Like, and he just decided that wasn't how it should be done. And apparently had a history of like he's in the serving line and he like goes in on the cooks about certain things because he's unhappy about the meal or something. And I'm just like, God, I would have paid money for that to happen while I was there. I would have lost it on that guy in front of God and everybody. But it was. So we intercepted this comment card, thank God. Like, so the supply officer got it and brought it to us instead of routing it or, doing what they normally would do. And so he's going to feel some heat as a result, I'm sure, like, because we talked to his CO, we're going to talk to a bunch of higher echelon people. But like, the problem was like, it's not even appropriate unless you're routing the comment card to say good job. Because if you were that fired up about, even if it was something legitimate, it's like, as the senior enlisted, it's like, go get the person that's actually in charge of that thing and say, hey, what happened? Like,
that's what I mean. Like some like random nuke or whatever, like some random egg hanger, they're not going to go like they're not going to go make the cooks like answer to them.
Right.
But like that guy,
yeah,
you could probably make the cooks come answer to you. Like,
well, and I used to encourage the crew, like, if you are so on fire about something that you're going to be dropping F-bombs on a comment card, like, just come find me, or like tell your chief and have them come find me. Like, if you're so on fire about like the quality of the food or the behavior of my cooks or whatever the hell else it was that triggered you, like, I encourage them, like, hey, come find me if it's that bad and we'll talk about it. But even like, there's something about that damn comment card box. Cause like even the chiefs that worked with me on my last submarine, it was like, they would drop comment cards crapping all over my cooks. And I'd like walk up, or they'd say something to like the E4 galley watch captain that was real inappropriate. And I'd come find them. Like, are you 12? Like, if you have an issue, come talk to me about it.
Just like you would do for any other division doing any, like, somehow it's different when it's cooks that everybody goes through. Like the galley does that, right? But like, you don't know, there's no like comment card to leave outside sonar when you walk through and you're like, hey, I walked through one of your spaces. It was really it wasn't clean enough. So I'm just going to leave a comment card for sonar.
And that's, I was just like, are you a child? Because like, yeah, if your guys were acting ridiculous, like let's say I was going back through the engine room to do something else and I walked by and a whole bunch of RC divers are like wrestling with each other or like doing something ridiculous that would totally happen on a submarine. Or like they're like berating each other or saying something super inappropriate or using a piece of equipment inappropriately or whatever. And I stopped them and corrected them. Even if I wasn't like fired up about it, I would go find their chief and let them know what happened. So how is it any different? Like, how do I not get the common courtesy of a chief that ate breakfast and they ran out of pancakes and you got all fired up because you eat pancakes every day and you decided to act like a screaming 10-year-old that didn't get his brekkie the way that he wanted it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, cause they would devolve into like little kids throwing temper tantrums. And I'm just like, is this what we're doing? Like, are you serious? Like, are you such a freaking child? And like, usually when I would find them and like give the disappointed dad talk, they'd be like, yeah, I'm sorry. Like, I just, I devolved into an angry 8-year-old, my bad. Like, and sometimes they'd even go by and like apologize to the cook, or they like caught him in a bad moment, which totally happens. And I get that. But like, it just seemed like this never ending string of like comment cards from senior enlisted people that it was super childish and petty and immature and it felt like zero productivity coming from it. They're just trolling people. And it's like, you're a chief or senior chief or master chief and you're like making sport out of demeaning junior enlisted sailors just because they're cooks, and somehow that makes it okay because we have a comment card box, like, or because it's food and that's like they're supposed to just cater to you, and the one time that they don't, you decide to throw a temper tantrum or whatever. And I'm just like,
yeah,
I can't with this crap, man. Like, but then when it was this guy in particular, I was like, I can't even, I don't know, man. Like, I was talking to on like my counterpart on the LS side, we were riding the small boat back, and I was just like, I'm gonna start talking down to these dudes soon. Like, I'm gonna start, like, whoever it is, like that, I'm gonna start like talking to them like they're junior sailors. Like, I'm gonna sit them down and be like explain this to me. Like justify this to me. And yes, you do have to do it, because I'm going to go brief like my admiral because of how idiotic this is. Like, right. How is this a thing that I even have to have a conversation with you about? I don't know, man. It was so weird. This whole job is weird, but this in particular, it's just like that behavior. I just like, I don't know. 'Cause I feel like I'm living in the Twilight Zone a little bit, where I'm like, I go down to these boats and I recognize the problem as they need a ton of training that they're never going to get. And so it's like, cause even I'm only on board for like one full day. And like, so it's like 2 days total about like, I'll do like a half day. You get on sometime during that day. And by the time we get rolling, like half the day's gone. So it's like you get like half a day, one full day, and then half a day on the other end, which is generally just you'll have like a little time in the morning to do, like, if you wanted to try to help them with quals or just do a little bit of training, but it's generally like you out brief and then get ready to get off the boat. Mm-hmm. So there's not a ton of time to provide training, because that's not what I'm there to do. I'm there to do an inspection, and it takes me like one full day to get that inspection checklist done. So if there's opportunities to train while I'm executing the checklist, we do that, but they're small. So they're never going to get that training because, one, there's no time or resources or effort devoted to providing like the construct to do it. But two, there's no ability. And I say that, and like, I feel like I'm swiping at my community, but it's like, it's just factually accurate. Like, there's almost zero people in the submarine force that are capable of teaching cooks how to cook. And I mean, like, classically train them, like teach them what you would learn in a culinary school. Like, they just don't exist because none of them have got that training. Like I got it on my first shore duty, not because the Navy provided it to me. And it's just like, those people don't exist unless we went and stole them all out of the enlisted aid community. Like, there's a lot of them there, and then there's a lot of them in the civilian world, and that's about it. And until we take the time to realize how ridiculous it is that they're so undertrained, and that we also don't have the functionality within the Navy to do that. It's like, we need to go sign a contract with the culinary school, pay them to teach our people how to do this at different phases of their career. And then eventually it will breed out the current construct. But then it's like the whole thing is built in a way that it doesn't make any sense. Like, I'm going down to these boats and executing this checklist that it's like, it doesn't make sense. I've been talking to people about like I don't even care about most of the stuff on this checklist. But it's like, I didn't write the checklist, and given the opportunity to provide input on the checklist, I would do that. And I may be provided the opportunity to do that in my current job, but it's like, even then it's just input, because like they offered me the opportunity to, like, revise the Navy Standard Core menu. They like, hey, do you want to rewrite the Navy Standard Core menu? I'm like, I mean, yeah, but I want to like light it on fire and like completely create something completely new. Is that on the table? And they're like, no. And I was just like, well, then never mind. Like, I can't, because it doesn't need tweaks. It needs to get lit on fire and like completely reconstructed. But then so I construct a menu that isn't within the skill set of, I think Navy submarine CSs, because they don't have the training.
Not just with that menu and all that stuff, right? But that mindset has come up a few times, and like, luckily now, the chain of command that I have is very open to like,
Yeah.
hey, if you think this is garbage and you want to completely change everything, like just give me an idea, you know, basically like convince me or talk to me about it. And if I agree with you or like you can sell me on it type deal, he's like, then we'll do it.
Yeah.
Like if it's a good idea, then let's do this. But, you know, or maybe it doesn't need to get changed, or maybe it is a slight tweak, but I think too many people are almost like offended when you want to change something majorly because they're like, no, I put all this work in it. And it's like, hey, I'm not saying that like you're a terrible person or, you know, I'm not saying that you did this maliciously or when you made it with what was available and time, money, and knowledge or resources or whatever, you probably did the best you could. And that's fine. And I'm sure it was better than what there was before that. But I have another better way that we could do things that like, let me pitch it to you. And it's like, nah, we're not good, you know, but it like, luckily and I don't know if that's just like a change in command thing. Like, you know, we had, when our CMC showed up, it was very much like, yeah, like, I don't know. I'm not like married to any of this. I'm not saying any of it's good or bad. I'm just saying like, I'm a new person and I have a different set of opinions about certain things. And so like, if you have a different way that you'd rather get something done, as long as it's still accomplished, then, you know, let's all hear you out. And so there's a lot of things that have changed.
Right.
And I don't know if it's just because it was different or because he's different or what. I have no idea. I don't know that level of how everything works, but it definitely, it's nice when somebody is like open to hearing like, well, I don't know, let's try doing all this wild stuff and see what happens. And it's like, yeah, okay, why not?
Yeah. And I think that like at that level, it works a lot better. Like he's in a position to do a lot of those things for like the command, but it'd be like, I would look, the difference in this situation is like this, it's like an institutional problem where it's like, it'd be like if you wanted to completely blow up and change the entire curriculum, you know what I mean? Like, and even then it's like that because the submarine force, it's like that's a submarine specific thing. So we have more control over that than we do like how the whole Navy does a thing. Mm-hmm. And that's what's so weird for me is it's just like, this problem is not submarine specific. It's the entire Navy has this problem, except for the enlisted aid community. Those guys can cook, but they're given the freedom and training to do so.
Yeah, I'm sure that when you get to that point, like once you're, you know, say like because I assume it's similar to like the flag riders for yeoman or something, right? It's like you're the personal cook for admirals or something.
And so it's like, all they care about. It's like their mission is to make Gucci food. Like, so that they put all their time and effort and training into that.
Well, and they're not also, you're going to find somebody who either A has like outside or pre-service or a natural proclivity to being able to cook really well.
Yeah.
Or you're like, I assume there's some kind of extra school that they might go to. Maybe not.
Yep. There is. There's an advanced culinary school in Fort Lee, Virginia that they go to on their way to one of those jobs. And it's like, it's still not, in my opinion, long enough, but it's like at that point, they have like years of experience in professional kitchens. And like you said, like they hopefully already have some kind of a formal culinary background. So when they show up to a school like that, whether it's like self-trained or they got it on their own time at like through a formal education, when they show up to that school, I think I want to say it's 3 weeks. But it's like a really intense, like condensed formal culinary school. Like they get a lot thrown at them really fast. And
I'm sure the starting point is a lot higher than the starting point for a school for sure. CSs.
Like way, way, way higher.
But like the difference too is like those people don't have, say, like MW, like they're not worried about rec committee and they're not worried about like who's doing the whatever. Like, I don't know. You don't like how much of like a FCPOA or CPOA.
I mean, they do
function. Are you worried about like, I mean, they do, but like,
they do that stuff, but it's not their focus.
No, like
Yeah.
he's not stressing out about the same stuff that
Right.
cooks at other commands are.
Right.
Or, like at a normal functioning command that has its full chain that has, hundreds of people and all these things that you can.
Specifically for culinary arts, there's a very, like it's encouraged that you get continuing education and certifications. And there's like a structure within that community to encourage that type of behavior. Like basically the premier certification body is called the American Culinary Federation. And like, there's a lot of guys, like a guy I made senior chief with, he's a buddy of mine. He was certified to like he was a certified instructor, and he was certified to administer the tests. And they had a bunch of those guys that in the enlisted aid community, where if a junior enlisted aide on their way up wanted to get one of those certifications, like you don't even have to go outside the lifelines. Like you have senior chiefs that are certified to administer the exam, all funded through Navy Cool, so that you can get those American Culinary Federation certifications. So you have, I mean, there's those sailors are like certified sous chefs and certified executive chefs. And there's a handful of, I want to say there in the history of the enlisted aid community, there's been a handful of certified master chefs, and there's like not that many of those on planet Earth. Like there's like I want to say like 1,500 in the whole world.
Right.
And so it's like that construct exists within their community to encourage and actually execute like continuing education specifically in culinary arts. And it's just like none of it. I mean, you have Navy Cool available to you, but you also have to have like time to pursue those things. And like even the level, and not because their whole job is effectively continuing education in culinary arts. Like that's what they do all day. Like I just saw this post from the Pac Fleet like flag mess where they did like some kind of foreign dignitary meal. It was like a French admiral or so, I don't know. It's somebody like some admiral from another country was visiting, and they did like this formal luncheon, and the showed the menu and the cooks like next to the food that they prepared. And it looks like some stuff that you would find at a really formal high end restaurant. And that's what they do for a living. Like every day they're reading and researching and testing. And then like they get these opportunities all the time when they have these visitors or luncheons or whatever to like practice, to apply their trade and like put this food in front of these people and see how they react to it and see if that worked and see if whatever. And so it's like, they're doing it all the time. They're doing it for a living. And so like, that's one of the things that I wish, we could like leverage, I guess, is just like the whole CSA school, like the culinary side of it, like man that with enlisted aides, like because they're so good at what they do. And it's like, but the problem is we also need like way more time, because you need reps. It's a craft. I don't care what anybody says about art and all this other crap. It's like when it gets to a certain level, yeah, it's art. But before that, it's a craft. You need repetitions to be able to do these things correctly and repeatably.
There's also a difference too in like the resources and the quantity that's being made from, say, an aide chef
kinda
to a CS on a carrier or something, right?
Kinda.
Like you're making it. You're not making meals for 500 plus.
Kinda.
So that's going to change a little bit of that.
Does.
And then the time restrictions that you have for that in between either prep or just serving time, like you're a little limited. Your resources are limited.
So it's just different. It's not like, so the stuff that enlisted aides do, there's a lot that can be stripped away without losing, like there's showmanship and garnish, like the plating and garnishing. And like, there's a lot that they do that is time consuming that you don't need to do to be able to prepare incredible food on a warship. And then there's a lot that they do technique wise and just like preparation method wise and use some ingredients that is perfect. It's like easily scalable. Like there's a lot, like some of the stuff they do, you could strip away some of the time consuming parts of it. And there's definitely methods and preparations and recipes they do that are just really time consuming and complex and are not scalable. But there's a lot of that stuff that is scalable. And it's like because when I was on my first Chiefs tour, I didn't spend a lot of time outside of the galley. It was just the chain of command I had thought that's where I needed to be, and they weren't wrong because I was undermanned. I didn't have any fleet returnees. So like I spent a lot of time in there training them on how to do certain things, and we would do things on mission that like melted everybody's brain. Like they were just like, we'd made bagels from scratch one time, and they were just like, that was the first time I had done it on a submarine, but like I was just like, I had the time to do it, and one of my guys was interested in doing it. I'm like, yeah, let's do it. Let's make bagels. And we did it, and they're really good. Like they're like making bagels from scratch. Mm-hmm. It's like, it's just a different thing. And they come out like in a way where it's just got that fresh baked, from scratch feel to it. And they're just like, the crew went nuts, and they're like, where did we get these from? And I'm like, we made them. They're like, you can make bagels? I'm like, yeah. Turns out I have a fully equipped professional kitchen and storerooms and freezers and everything full of food. People put a ceiling on what can be done on a warship. Not like they assume it's I have limitations because I don't have the equipment or I don't have the ingredients. And there are situations where that's true, but I'm like 85% equipped. Like I have most of what you would need in a professional kitchen to do most things. The skill set is what's missing. And it's like, you can make ridiculous food on board a submarine or on board an aircraft carrier. And a lot of it is scalable. And a lot of it, you would have to like, tailor it to the buffet style service that we do, where you have to be able to make enough of it to feed that many people, which means you're putting it in like 4-inch or 2-inch full pans or half pans or whatever. And it needs to be hot held for a period of time and be able to like, I need to be able to like take it from a warmer and put it into the serving line and not run out of food every 5 seconds because it's too complex or whatever. But there's a lot of stuff you can also do that's like, you can do like cook it in batches and serve it as you go through the meal, just like we do underway on a submarine with like grilling chicken or burgers or like frying French fries or chicken. If you're doing it correctly, you're doing it in batches so that the freshest possible stuff is going on the serving line, so you're not getting like soggy French fries. But there's a lot of the things that you can do if you have the skill set. You can make ridiculous food. And like, yeah, a lot of it is going to be more in the style of like home cooked style food, like the kind of stuff that will do well and hold up well in that kind of like cafeteria style or buffet style service that we do on most warships. But it's like the quality and freshness, and like you could do some ridiculous food. It's just the skill set doesn't exist. And it's like it hurts my heart when we're like, one of the excuses that's made is that, well, we're on a submarine. So, and it's like, no, that's crap. Like there, you can do, amazing food if you have the skill set.
Which I understand. Like I am not a great cook by any means. Like I can get by, but it's just not a thing that I've ever, I never got into a lot of it. I just follow a recipe to the T, and that's all I can do. Right.
Yeah.
But so like one of the YouTube channels that I watch, I watch a bunch of woodworking stuff, and, some of them have, they like whip out like their CNC machine to do something. And it's like, it's cool. And I'm not against any of it. It's because I'm also a huge nerd. So that stuff's interesting to me. But then there's one guy that I watch. I think it's called Third Coast Craftsman.
Yep.
But like 90% of his stuff is hand tools, right?
Yeah.
Like he's got his own, like the old hand crank drill, and he'll drill out holes by hand, and all his planes, everything by hand. And like, and he does like awesome work. Right. And there's a bunch of cool tips and tricks when you don't have like certain tools that you use, and he knows how, and every once in a while you'll see him like pull out some cool tool for something. But I think generally speaking, he uses all, self-powered old school tools. And the only two things that I can see is like, he obviously is very skilled at what he does, because he does awesome work without having, some laser guided saw to do something or other. And it still comes out perfectly straight and flat or whatever. But it's got to take him so much longer to get a lot of those things done, because that's usually what those, like any tool that we have across any like spectrum of stuff, like all the new technology just helps speed things up, right? Like
Yeah.
you don't need a bunch of cows to pull through and plow a field or not cows, but whatever. Like you could just fire up a tractor and do like 4 lanes at a time and you're done. And so like all that stuff does just save time, but that trade-off is people probably lose some of those skill sets because they don't have to do those things by hand. So, but like, what I mean is like with a difference of like, yes, you have the tools that are available sitting there, and you may not, like to your point, those people may not have that skill set to know how to use all of those tools to the best of their ability. But I feel like some of that stuff, like it's just a time sink. Like I don't know. I just picture like with the rotation of everybody, like there's only so many burners, there's only so many ovens, there's only so many things, and you have to make stuff at such quantity that it can't come out great for all 100 people when you can only cook things in like 15-person batches or whatever. I mean, I'm sure it's more than that, but
yeah, but it's,
you know what I mean? Like you're gonna like, it's gonna slow you down. And at some point you just hit this peak of like, this is literally the best that's capable in here, unless you're doing either a small batch or like some odd,
I guess you know
what I mean? Like,
I guess what I'm saying
bagels,
is,
I get it. Like you can make bagels, but you're not making 400 of them that are all going to instantly be just as good at the same time. Or like maybe you are, but how much that's a bagel as opposed to a full meal that requires, however many different steps of preparation that you have to time the chicken coming out and being just as good as the whatever else, insert the rest of the meal, like coordinating all of that and having the space and the time to do all those things at the same time. Like that's where I say, like, that's what I mean with the limitations of like, what's on board.
You're not entirely wrong. Like your point's not invalid. It's just like the ceiling for what can be done compared to like the current level is so much higher. You know what I mean? Like you're not wrong that like for sure there is a ceiling, and the larger you scale up, the lower that ceiling is going to be.
Right.
But that ceiling is so far above what we're doing now because there isn't the skill set to maximize the potential of the equipment and personnel and like food that they have on board. It just doesn't exist. There's the capacity to do those things isn't there. Like they have the equipment, they have the space, they generally have the personnel, they just don't have the skill set. And so it's like, and you're right. Like as the larger you scale it, the ceiling is going to keep coming down, but in relation to the level we're operating right now, it's like not even close. Like you could just do so much better. And that's what drives me nuts is that we don't even try. We're not putting any time, effort, or money into training in a way that would maximize that potential. Like we have this capacity to do it and we're just not using it. And then we're trying to build the construct around like almost dumbing it down. Like we're trying to make it as simple as possible and like basically just train people, like give them the bare minimum required level of knowledge to like not hurt themselves and not make people sick. And then just like heat and serve or like do the most basic stuff possible with the equipment and food that's available to feed the crew instead of putting money into training.
So what's interesting with that too is that I think one of the biggest issues that we've been dealing with the most at our command and with just the amount of commands that we deal with that I see a lot is manning, right? Like we have a huge manning issue. A lot of places, everybody's undermanned, right? But one of the side effects of being undermanned is that also means you have fewer people to be able to send to a school. So like even if this awesome CSC school existed that was longer, that you could do all this, like nobody can I mean, I know it's a blanket statement, right? But like generally speaking, how many people do you think would be able to go do that?
Yeah.
It's easy to say that on a boomer, right? When the boat's gone, like, what are they doing? So that would be a great time for them. But fast boats couldn't do that. Surface ships couldn't do that. Like, if you're undermanned, you can't. Who is willingly thinking, I'll just lose one more person intentionally, and just But like, it's kind of the wrong mindset. That's the very practical, help me right now mindset. But that's not like the long-term health of your rate mindset, right? Like long-term, if you're trying to help your command, your division, whatever, you want to get as many people to schools as you can when you can. Yeah, you're going to lose a little bit, but you're going to help that sailor. You're going to help your division because you're going to have more well-trained sailors, et cetera, et cetera. But if you like, we have that issue all the time with people that just can't come to a school. I don't know how many times we have to cancel something because you get ready for some course that's only taught quarterly or whatever.
Yeah.
And then it starts up and nobody's there.
That's wild.
There's like one no-show and nobody else signed up. And you're like, where is everybody? And they're like, oh, they got surged, so they couldn't send somebody.
Yeah. And that concept, like where...
Then it just sucks because you just keep going in circles of like, there's still you have the schoolhouse sitting there just waiting to go help somebody, but then they don't have enough people out in the fleet to lose temporarily to go to the school to get the training. So then the boat that's undermanned is now calling the schoolhouse asking for instructors to get underway to help out their undermanned. And you're like, this isn't, we're doing this backwards. You're supposed to send me people, not me send you.
Weird. What's that analogy where it's like something to do with your nose to spite your face, like to like bite off your nose or some weird nose, like where it's like, it's like you're self-sabotaging. Like, it's like, what? Because you just in general, not even necessarily in relation to like manning in schools and stuff, but like, it feels like that thread has pervaded my entire naval experience where it's just like, we're just putting Band-Aids on bullet holes the whole time instead of like taking advantage of an opportunity to do what's best for the Navy, like, and the sailor that is part of the, like, when I say the Navy, I mean that sailor. So it's like if I got the opportunity to like send a sailor to a school or get a sailor an advanced qualification or get the sailor off the submarine to witness the birth of their first child, or because like even that stuff like that doesn't directly like benefit them professionally. It's like you want to retain the people that you're putting time and effort into training, like that you take care of them. So like when those things arise and they need time off, like finding a way. And I can't tell you how many times I've like invented reasons that may have been a stretch of the truth to get a sailor out of work to go do the thing or take care of the thing. And like that capital that you gain is like invaluable to when I need them to do something or whatever. And a lot of it's like, I need them to suck up that we're going to be down one person because I'm sending that CS2 to school during the first 3 weeks or whatever of the deployment.
Right.
And it's like, but then when they come back, then it benefits us a ton because then they have the ability or skill or whatever to do this other thing. And so now that makes us that much better. And I've never understood like the entirety of my career. It's like, we just take the easiest answer and it's almost like you're spending something like it's a consumable as far as like personnel go to just make it as comfortable as possible right now, or to like address the problem in whatever way makes the most sense right now, and completely disregarding the downstream effects of the expenditure that I'm making right now, and it's just like, and a lot of times what I find is that based on the temporary nature of our assignments. And so like our then like thereby our ownership of that command and that command's mission is like, well, I'm transferring, so this isn't going to be my problem in 6 months. So it's like, if I expend something in a way that in 6 months they're going to be up shit's creek, but right now it makes the most sense. Well, I'm not going to be here in 6 months, so who cares? You know what I mean? It's just like, not my problem. And then that unit finds itself in that scenario, and then the person that is there has to figure out how they're going to dig themselves out of that hole that they're in. But
yeah, so with that whole same cyclical problem, we have like ANAVs everywhere is a huge like low spot or whatever. There's just not enough ANAVs, right? And to the point where like we have an ANAV who's he's going back to, he's qualified Cobb and he's going back to be an ANAV because they won't let him go.
Yeah.
Because there's just not enough ANAVs. And our CO was talking about this, not too, we do like quarterly meetings with them to talk about our rates and all that. And we had to send off a message talking about how we're under, I think we're under, well, at the time when we wrote the message, we were going to be under like 59% manned.
Jesus.
And we're like, we're going to have to start shutting down schools because we can't teach them. But then how stupid is that? Because then how do you expect to get trained people to come relieve you?
Right.
When you can't teach them because you don't have the people that like, it's the same cycle, like a vicious cycle. Right. And, but then we're saying we need people so we can train somebody. But then the boats are saying like, well, we can't send you somebody because we need the people here. And then we're like, well, we can't send you trained people unless we have them. I don't know. There's no, it's the chicken or the egg. Right. But, the warships are always going to win out, you know, all the operational commands, which they should. I'm not saying they shouldn't, but, it's, the CO was talking about that where like he was looking around and it was basically like, hey, who's, you know, he had an ANAV. This was like a while ago. I don't even know what ship it was on. He didn't say, but he was talking about how he saw this guy who like, he was looking at their ANAV and was like, okay, cool. I see that you're leaving soon. When does like, who is your replacement? And it was like, oh, I don't know. We don't have anybody else on board qualified. And it was like, well, why not? And it's like, well, because you have to send them to, you know, whatever school for however long. And we haven't been able to get them off. And it's like, yeah, but like either you lose this guy temporarily for a little bit, or now we're going to affect outside entities when we have to, you know, steal somebody from somebody else, or you have to get extended or whatever. So like you need to send somebody to the school so that you have a replacement. Yeah. But then if they don't, like you said, it's a short-sighted fix
for this deployment,
like, well, I won't be here, so who cares?
Yeah, I have one more body for this deployment, and that's all I have to worry about. So it's like, it's good luck getting a Cobb to buy off on not having an extra Nav ET on board, which is like their manning has always been atrocious. But it's just like but they don't think about it like that. Like, and even if one did or two did, it's like if the whole force isn't thinking that way, then it's like, it's all they're going to do is fix someone else's problem because they're going to qualify an ANAV and then that ANAV is going to go somewhere else. And now they're down an Nav ET. So it's just like, to them, what did that investment gain them? Like, now I'm down one more sailor. Neat. Like, so I get it. I understand why they're so fiercely protective of their manning. But at the same time, it's like, at some point we need to line this up in a way that those sailors, like, we are starting to make those sacrifices so those sailors can go to the schools. So then those schools aren't shutting down. So then those sailors are now trained and qualified to go do those other jobs. But I also, like, weirdly, I started thinking about, like, it started with, like, you know how they do MIDI ops or whatever, where they, like, midshipmen go out on ships and then they, like, are trying to, like, convince them to come to their community. They're trying to sell them on it. And I always used
the worst.
Yeah, it's so dumb. I used to always argue the point, like, they're already in the Navy. They already owe you 6 years for their college education. So why do you have to sell them on anything? Like, why don't you just send them where you need them? And, like, based on their degrees and aptitude and whatever. But, like, the same thing goes for, like, certain, like, career fields and even, like jobs or qualifications or whatever, even on submarines. It's just like, I never understood why it was like, oh, well, we can't get anybody here because nobody wants to volunteer to come here. And it's just like, why do they have to volunteer? Like, when did the military become a civilian industry where I have to, like, get you to say okay, instead of just, like, if you decide to re-enlist, it's with the understanding that the Navy's going to send you where they need you based on your experience and training and qualifications and whatever. So it's like, I don't like, and there's a balance there with retention. It's like, well, if they know that you're just going to send them wherever you need them, no matter what, and their preference doesn't figure in, then retention's going to go down. So I get it. But there's certain things where I feel like we could gain a lot by just telling people this is where I need you, instead of allowing there to be manning gaps all the time. Like for instance, and this is where it gets real weird. And I think I might have told you about this, but I have two second classes on the staff that I work at that they're technically on shore duty, but their jobs exist because in order to fix some kind of a manning gap that existed, they decided to create these 2 shore duty billets and put a couple of CS2s or CS3s there. And then as GNs needed support or whatever for cooks, they would go deploy with the unit. Only deployment, not like local ops, not an import, not none of that other stuff. But like when they go on deployment, if one of the 4 crews needed a cook, they would go out as like an extra to plus up the manning. So the obvious first problem there is that's not shore duty if you're deploying like every 5 minutes.
Right.
But that's kind of separate from where I'm going with this is like, they recently, manning problems everywhere. That's all I have in my life, and I'm trying to fix them. But those units started asking for those sailors to come out on deployment. Mm-hmm. And so we're like, all right, we're trying to figure out how to do it. And we're already in a weird spot where like one kid's getting out, 2 of them that showed up because we also have like a pseudo flag CS, but they all kind of like are in the same pool. So like the flag CS is about to turn over. So one guy's on his way out to go to a boat. The new guy's there and they're turning over, and then he's going to relieve. And then I've got one GN guy that's about to get out. And then the other guy just showed up from a boat, like literally was just on deployment and just had a child as well. So I'm in this weird like period where it's like, I'll make something work. I just got to figure out what makes the most sense out of the people that I have. So I'm about to plug a gap on one of those boats. And then we get this message saying, hey, this high level echelon command is dictating that all these commands provide an individual augmentee to get onto a surface ship and putz around, like a bunch of ports as like some goodwill thing. Right. So they sent this message down through our like the submarine force, high echelon level commands all the way down.
Right.
And they're asking operational submarines to cough up bodies to go do this. And we're just like,
and I guarantee you there's hands going up everywhere.
Oh no. So it never made it down. It never made it down to that level. It made it to like the squadrons, and they're like, no, like get out of here with it. Like, cause like we have to go, defend democracy, like execute missions, vital national security, like get out of here with this crap. So they sent it back up, and they're like, hard no, we don't have anybody. So then it comes back up to us, and I have these 2 people that have already been identified on a list of candidates up at that higher, like almost the highest level,
right,
in the submarine force. And so basically we got told like one of your guys
you're giving us one.
Yeah, you are doing this. And so I'm like, so I got to tell an operational submarine going out on deployment that has ridiculous manning issues that they can't have this guy because he has to go on some goodwill tour, filling a spot on, wait for it, a surface ship. So then they're going to go like on some goodwill tour around the ocean. Like seriously, they're not doing a mission. They're not like, it's just some stupid goodwill tour thing that they do. I forget the exact, it's like a humanitarian like exercise thing. And I'm just like, how is this my problem? Please hit the like button, drop a comment down below on what you thought, and subscribe to the channel. Check out the rest of the episode in part 2, and don't give up the ship.